Info.
99.3 Nigeria Info. It's a holiday at your end. It's not at our end.
No, it's not.
I'll be saying that.
It's not that we're sad though. We're not sad though.
No, it's not. It's not like it's paining us or something.
We like it.
No, we don't. Nah, on that one, you're so on your own. But guys, you're welcome to the Morning Crossfire. It's another beautiful morning. It's the 23rd of December. And from today, for the next 2 weeks, we're taking 2019 in retrospect. That means we're looking at all the things that have happened this year, the most important of them all. And today we're starting with human rights violations. Interestingly, Nigeria just got on a watch list, one leg in though.
Right.
It's a warning for us. But we'll be looking at all the possible human rights violations that have happened this year. We'll remind you of them and also take your thoughts and comments. We're streaming live on Facebook. You can watch us now. Just search for Nigeria Info 99.3 and voila, there we are. If you'd like to join us anywhere you want in the world, just listen on our website, nigeriainfo.fm. Twitter, you can also reach us at Nigeria Info FM. Welcome to the show. I am Wemimo Adewuni.
I am Sheriff Quadry. Listen, a lot happened in 2019 in the human rights space. If you have been following up on the news from the beginning of the year to this very moment, definitely you have one or two things to say as regards, how human rights have been well protected or less protected, depending on the size of the fence that you belong in 2019. So feel free. It's going to be highly engaging this morning on the Morning Crossfire. Our phone lines are very, very okay right now, so we can guarantee you that. So you'll be the phone lines will be open much later on in the show, so we can have an all-inclusive conversation as regards human rights. Like we said earlier, it's the 2019 in retrospect that we'll be doing from now to the end of the year. So we have compartmentalized all of the sectors so that we take them one after the other. Achike Chude is a rights activist. He joins us on the program this morning. Achike, good morning to you.
Good morning
it's
to you.
It's good to have you around.
To the listeners, of course, I'm glid to be here.
If you're watching us, you can see he's ready. Because from here, there's a showdown planned. CSOs are having a protest. And correspondent Tunde Pratt is heading there. The protest is planned to start at 9, Achike.
Yes.
So we'll be giving you coverage of that. Achike, before we go into 2019, why is this protest happening today?
Yeah, because I think Nigerians are not generally happy about the state of things in the country, really. And especially with regards to, that's even the essence of why we are here.
Right.
Especially with regards to issues of rights and then the rule of law in the country. And I think there is this perception, I think it's even gone beyond perception, that when it comes to the rule of law, that the country is not getting it right, and that there is the need for urgent intervention by Nigerians across board to protect the rights and liberties of the Nigerian people. And so I think this is essentially what the whole thing it's all about.
There was an ultimatum, the ultimatum issued by a coalition of civil society organizations. That will end today.
Yeah, well, some of us are not exactly enamored by the issuance of ultimatums ultimately, because the state is constantly in evolution. So there are changes every single day, and you cannot determine the state of a country in one day. It's a process.
Right.
And so sometimes when you issue ultimatums like that, one has the impression sometimes, or the impression is given that it's a dual situation, and that this thing must happen at this particular point in time. But it's a continuous engagement with the state.
Let's look at what the demands are during the 14-day deadline. The coalition, a coalition of over 200 civil society organizations, on Monday the 9th, precisely 2 weeks ago, during a press conference on the state of the nation themed Nigeria's troubling state of affairs in Abuja, gave the federal government a 14-day ultimatum to release Omoyele Sowore and other illegally detained persons or risk having a nationwide mass action. The CSOs made a list of 5 demands, which it needed the government to unfailingly comply with within 14 days. 14 days. President Muhammadu Buhari is expected to show accountability as president and commander-in-chief and address the nation on his commitment to the rule of law and human rights. That's number one. Two, the release of all illegally detained persons by the DSS, as reviewed by Amnesty, Premium Times, and the Punch newspapers in recent months. Number three, that the government obey all outstanding court orders. Number four, an investigation of the officers who violated protocol and the circumstances leading to Showore's second arrest. And if the unconditional release by Showore per his bail. Do you think any of these couldn't have been achieved in 14 days? They look like short-term goals, really.
Yeah, well, every fair-minded Nigerians will not disagree with any of the items that you have listed. Every fair-minded, patriotic, committed Nigerian, because these are the basis for national stability. And again, in a way, the government gave us an idea, this government, before they came to power in 2015, that these things you just talked about will be the basis of governance. They talked about the rule of law, the respect for the rule of law.
Right.
They talked about, the improvement in our social standing as a people and all that. So they talked, and of course, the rule of law also implies respect for court orders and judgments when they are given and all that. So we are not saying, or this coalition is not saying anything that is contrary to what the government had espoused before they got to power. The only difference is that having gotten to power, through their words and actions, they seem to have vitiated every other thing that they have said prior to coming to power. And so people are reminding them of the stance that they had taken even before now. And any responsible, committed government will not quarrel with any of this.
What would you say 14 days was too short for all of these demands to be met by the government?
Wemimo just suggested that these things are continuous. These things are things that can be done within the hour. It's about respect for the rule of law. It's about respect for your citizens. It's about justice, equity, fairness, and all that. That are consistent with the ideals and ethos of democracy in any civilized society. So there is nothing new about all of these things. And it's something, it cannot be too long. It's something that can be done within an hour, within a day. It depends on the will of those that are in charge. It depends on their temperament. It depends on their, ideological orientation and their tendencies.
Right.
Unfortunately, some of these tendencies or these proclivities seem to verge on things that are incompatible with the practice of democracy. And that is why a lot of people are worried. So when government seems to fail in areas that are of primary concern to the citizens, the citizens have a right. Because ultimately, governance is about the people.
Right.
Governance is for the people. And of course, if you look at consider once more the basic definition of democracy, government of the people, for the people, by the people. So a few people are selected or elected, on the basis of which, the people imbue them with powers.
Right.
They give up some of their powers, to a few people. Give them certain privileges that come with those powers so that they can work on behalf of the generality of the people. So what happens when they fail? Power still resides with the people. The people have a right to respond, in an appropriate measure to ensure that the society is not, thrown to the dogs by a few people.
Let me talk to you about the protection of human rights, especially the year under review, 2019. How would you describe Nigeria's record in the protection of human rights in 2019? I'm saying Nigeria because I am not particularly focusing on the federal government, the police, what do they call them now? SARS, the state government in some instances, harassing innocent people. Nigeria as a whole, as a country.
Yeah.
How would you rate us?
Yeah, and I think that is the way it should be looked at. The entire environment, under which human rights is a practice observed,
right?
Or not observed, and so it's from every facet of our national life, from the local government to the state government to the federal government and so on. So when you look at it, I want to tell you that the report by, I think that Wemimo was just reading or quoting by the United States will seem to be the combination of everything that has gone wrong with the country in so many ways. The reality is that if you ask the ordinary person on the street today, and it's not just about me, what is the perception of Nigerians with regards to governance in this country? And we are no longer just not talking about corruption. How did they see the government in this country, whether local government, state government, or federal government? Do they see governments as working in their own interest? Do they see any attempt by those people who are running governments to ensure national stability and cohesion and peace in the country? They do not see that. Most of the crises that are being perpetrated are as a result of institutional weaknesses in the country, because you have people who are not committed to the ideals, again, of democracy.
I listened to one of a police boss who also said something similar. And like you said when we started, sometimes is the attitude of these people to their jobs within those institutions. But the institutions must be stronger, and the structures must be strong enough that how you feel about human rights should not matter. If the institutions are strong, then you have to work within the confines of that institution. Professor Wole Soyinka very recently stated that the continuous decision of the federal government to disobey and disregard court orders will create room for anarchy in Nigeria state. It was on Public Square very recently, right here on Nigeria Info. He spoke where he said that such disregard of the judiciary may lead to civil disobedience on the part of Nigerians. He called on government to avoid any form of interference in court processes because this could lead to an ungovernable country. Listen to this.
If I recognize a certain structure of society as being the arbiter between myself as an individual, my own community, my own sphere of interest, concentric circles and so on, and this is what binds all of us together, and another section of that social structure, that political structure, says no. Why should I also not become a refusenik in terms of accepting the authority of that other branch of government?
Okay, he also said, talks about security agencies, and he asked them to exercise caution when they carry out their duties. He spoke about the DSS, and he asked them to stop interfering with court processes, and that this interference shows lack of checks and balance between the executive and the judiciary. He also said that they need to operate professionally when dealing with security issues across the country.
When governance pretends, it's like the head of the DSS, as we read yesterday, going to apologize to the judge whose premises that organization had violated. We should take our lesson from the fact that that was not the first apology. All it means is that they believe they lost out this particular battle, but that they are determined to win that perennial war between power and freedom.
Well, he also talks about the military. He said that Nigerians need to be more appreciative of the military and their efforts in ensuring that we have security across the country.
We forget to thank those who are actually solving issues of our national security. So there are issues of security. But then it's amazing. Freedom of expression, of information, the sharing of information is essential to democracy, is essential to openness.
There you have it. Talks about security right there. Earlier this year, because we're taking you around, but let me take your thoughts on what Professor Wole Soyinka said.
Yeah, of course. He's talking about, let's just put it this way, he's talking about the various actors that are responsible for, either the violation of human rights or the upholding of human rights in a country. And so you have state actors and non-state actors. We also have to look at, of course, they say to whom much is given, much is expected. So you want to believe that at the level of governance, because you have a specific set of people that have been elected and chosen by the people for the good governance of society, for the proper direction of society,
right,
the bigger burden lies with them. But you see, when you talk about activities of non-state actors, again, when you talk of the activities of non-state actors, you're talking about, groups like Boko Haram, the Herdsmen, and all of these other social deviants that are also operating to make the general environment unsafe for people and ensure that the rights of the people are breached. Right. That is why you have government. It is at that level that when non-state actors, are engaged in the violation of human rights through the killings, through the burnings and the lootings and all of that, then the state government that has a duty to provide security and protect the welfare of the people now has an obligation to act in defense of the Nigerian people. Right. But when you have a situation, you find a situation where the same state that has the burden of duty, the burden of responsibility to the people, is the one also in violation of the rights of the people, then it becomes a very terrible situation. We are talking about state actors, institutions, the Nigerian police, the Nigerian army. We have seen instances. But worst of all, you have governments at both state and national level that are also involved, in desecrating or involved in showing disdain and contempt for the rule of law in the country in such blatant and open manner that we have seen in the past few months. Then you realize that the Nigerian state is in trouble.
Professor Wole Soyinka says something in that audio about power and freedom. These are two things that, if not handled very carefully, could quickly deteriorate. And let me speak to you on that based on institution and power, abuse of power that you mentioned earlier. How can a country, a society, a very complex society such as ours, can operate power in such a way that it won't impugn on the freedom of the people? And how can the freedom of the people not be taken too far in the name of the freedom of the people? It's quite interwoven. I listened to Professor very well when he mentioned that thing. It sounded so simple, but if we delve into it critically, you know that the people have this tendency to take freedom too far. And if can freedom be taken too far?
No,
really?
I do not really think so. And then when you say, that it would appear that our situation in Nigeria is complex, what makes it complex? The multiplicity of, various ethnic groups that we have, the religious organizations, and then look at other countries that have, in terms of that have, a greater disparity in terms of ethnic mix and in terms of religion and all that. I think it is about leadership ultimately at the end of the day. And the reality, like a lot of us have been saying in the past, is that, how come the ordinary Nigerians find it very convenient to live peacefully with one another without the strictures of religious and ethnic divides and geopolitics and all of that? We know, and we have talked always about the danger of identity politics, which has always been used by the political class in this country to divide the people, make the situation seem complex while they continue to raid the treasury of this country. This is what the whole thing is all about. So governance, and we are talking, for instance, you're talking about the rule of law.
Right.
You're talking about whether the people, for instance, can take their freedom too far and the rest. And I said, look, why do you have institutions? Why do you have three arms of government? One independent, but interdependent, working with one another for the good and progress of the society. It is simply because when, for instance, it is clear, in practical terms, for instance, why do we have government, especially at the state and federal level, not respecting decisions of the third arm of government, which is the courts?
Right.
You understand? So this is what they have constantly done. The government itself cannot determine what, national security imperatives are, especially when it gets to a situation where a Nigerian citizen is on the verge of losing his liberty.
Right.
That liberty can be lost, but only on the basis of the pronouncement of a court.
Unfortunately, there are so many court orders also that have not been obeyed. Rotimi Sankore joins us, but there's so many human rights violation issues that we talked about in 2019. If you remember, earlier in the year also, the youngest senator in Nigeria was in the news. He represents Adamawa North Senatorial District, Elisha Abo, and his story made the rounds around July 2nd. He was said to, was seen in a video attacking and slapping and beating up a nursing mother repeatedly at a sex toy shop in Wuse area of Abuja. Now, in Nigeria, violence against women is pervasive, and stats from the Nigeria Demographic and Health Survey shows that nearly 3 out of 10 girls have experienced physical violence by the age of 15, despite the fact that we have a Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, VAP, which has been passed into law to eliminate violence. We had a conversation also about a month ago on the 25th of November during the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And one of our guests, Ms. Harriet Thompson, who is from the British, who's a Deputy British High Commissioner, made a statement about what Nigeria is doing or not doing right in terms of protecting women against violence. Listen to this.
So we use these 16 days to go on marches, to speak on the media and radio, as we're doing this morning, using social media, traditional media, discussions, lectures, etc., to really raise awareness of these issues. And I think when people hear the statistics, they're shocked. And the more we talk about this, the more likely we are to be able to change social norms, so that it becomes socially unacceptable. But no, it's not enough.
All right. She says it's not enough to just talk about it. Rotimi, thanks for joining us. Let's talk about this violation of women's rights, violence against women. We had 16 days of activism the month of November. Unfortunately, like Harriet said, it's not just enough to talk about it. What do we expect to change, having gone through such a very interesting year?
The thing with respect to violation of women's rights is often that a lot of people don't recognize those violations as violation. And, that is our work in the media, to really make it clear that those violations are really at the core of human rights issues. So, on the 16 days, Harriet and I were in the studio with you and Sheriff. And we looked at a broad range of issues. So the example I give the most is the example of forced child marriage, where the state often does not think it is important to defend a child that happens to be a girl from a man that has captured the girl and is intent on subjecting that girl to lifelong sexual violence and lifelong domestic exploitation, but believes that he can get away with it just by declaring that child is his wife. It says a lot about how a lot of men even view marriage on its own,
Because you can't even get married if you're a child. So what are we saying?
So, does the state recognize that as violence? You can see members of the government just talking about it. But do they enforce that protection? Do they prevent? And when it happens, do they go and rescue the child? Obviously not. But if a 12-year-old girl is grabbed off the street by a random stranger and subjected to a fraction of what that girl forced into child marriage is going to go through for all her lifetime, the perception is different. So, does it mean that once it is described as marriage, it is legitimized? So that's what you say, state accepted violence against millions of girl children. If you talk about female genital mutilation, some people think it is culture.
They still believe it is.
And that it is acceptable.
And that it must be done.
And that, must or should.
Yeah, they believe it must be done. Many of them think if you don't do it, in fact, some of them tell you that if you don't do it, the girl gets hurt. It's for the benefit of the girl.
But this is a practice that has zero, I repeat, zero health benefits.
Right.
There is no medical, social, or any benefit to female genital mutilation. In fact, everything is a minus there. From higher risk of dying at childbirth due to tears and other such injury. So we have a situation in which, when we are talking about human rights, there are several issues that we need to define properly, that the state has to intervene to protect citizens. And in this case, gender-based violence or violence against women is one of those broad categories.
Right. We're trying to move fast because a lot of things happened this year.
Absolutely.
And we're running you through everything.
Plenty of things.
When we come back from this break, we're talking about some more human rights violations. We've talked about Showere's detention. That's where we started from because of the planned protest and the 14-day ultimatum given. We've talked about violation of women's rights, taking an example from Senator Elisha Abu, whose case is still in court, by the way. I've had people send me tweets. Say, how far?
And it's still in the National Assembly.
It's still right there in the National Assembly. No, there was a committee set up, but really there wasn't anything done because the matter is still in court and we don't know where it's going yet. But let's head out for a break. Remember, you can join us right now live on Facebook. Tell us your thoughts about all the things we've talked about and every other thing that happened in Nigeria in 2019. We'll be back after this very quick break. I'm Wemimo Adewuni.
I'm Sheriff Quadry. Do join us again.
More talk, news and sports after this.
We are back. The conversation continued during the break, surely. And here we are again. We're looking at human rights violations in Nigeria. Remember, from today to the end of the year, we're doing 2019 in retrospect. And we're looking at every major thing that happened in Nigeria throughout 2019. We're starting off today with human rights violation, and there is a planned protest by a coalition of civil society organizations to be happening here in Lagos and Abuja. We'll be linking up with Tunde Pratt shortly, who is covering that for us here in Lagos. So we've talked about violence against women. We've talked about detentions and disobedience to court orders. Achike Chude is here with us in the studio. Rotimi Sankore is also here. And I'm Wemimo Adewuni. Welcome back.
I am Sheriff Quadry. Thank you for staying with us. Our socials are very active right now. If you've got a comment, a thought as regards how Nigeria has fared in 2019, as regards human rights protection, human rights violation, whatever it is that you want to say as regards human rights in Nigeria in 2019, feel free to drop your tweets with us at Nigeria Info FM on Twitter. On Facebook and YouTube, we're streaming live. Just drop a comment below the video streaming there. That's Nigeria Info 99.3. Our WhatsApp line is still very active as well. The WhatsApp line is 0809 597 5805. Talk to us about human rights in Nigeria in 2019.
Let's go back to April 2019, where the hashtag #EndSARS became a thing again. We remember the killing of Kolade Johnson on the 31st of March this year, following wounds sustained from bullets fired by police officers during a raid at his neighborhood in Lagos. The 36-year-old Kolade was shot at a viewing center while he was watching a football match between Liverpool and Tottenham at about 4:30 p.m. Now, there were a lot of conversations going on social media, one of which was Segun Awosoya, whom we also had on the conversation then, who's also a police reform activist. And he said, let me quote on Twitter, "I call on all strong and responsible voices out there to be alert at a national peaceful protest on hashtag #EndSARS." Police brutality, unfortunately, is not ended yet. Some weeks ago, I still saw the hashtag come back up again. Hashtag #EndSARS. What do you mean? A little reform was carried out this year. But it didn't look like it changed
The names.
The name.
The names in the title were rearranged.
The names were changed.
Well, I think that
Didn't mean anything.
Well, there is somebody in that committee clearly who is a Scrabble fan, and just assume that reshuffling the alphabets constitutes some kind of reform, by calling it federal or non-federal. But as we can see, nothing fundamental has changed. There was a bit of withdrawal from misbehavior, given public outcry. I mean, the point really is, once you set up a group of people with not clearly defined goals, in crime fighting, what they are likely to do in a dysfunctional state is to turn the arms against citizens and especially young people for purposes of exploitation.
Right.
If the law is clear and the law says they can only intervene when a robbery is in progress, full stop, and there is no room for mago. I mean, there were four young men in the car. They look like suspects. No. The point is, they should only intervene when a robbery is in progress.
That's not the case, is it?
That's not the case. So, we need to repeat, till the end of the world. That is their only role.
Before we move on, I know we have to move on, Wemimo, but
yes,
I need to touch on this, Achike, and I need to speak to you on this SARS as well. Is the police authority being seen to be doing something about SARS? The operations of SARS?
Maybe just briefly, I'll respond to that. I think Rotimi's view on changing of
name
and all of that. I think Fela said, look, whether it is Armed Forces Revolutionary Council or People's Revolutionary Council, it translates to one thing: soldier go, soldier come. It is the same thing. There is no change, And so, the question you asked is the police authority. Look, at the top echelon of the police authorities, those people are a different set of people. They are usually more refined and all that. But again, they are also part of a system. They have also grown up from the rank. So there's a structure, and I think when Rotimi used the word social dysfunction, or a dysfunctional society, I think it is critical, because we must also not forget that these people seem to be demons in the country. And that's why I use social, dysfunctionality. They seem to be demons in the country. Take them out of Nigeria, put them in another environment where all of those things that they have been deprived of are given to them. One of them once told me that when he was on peacekeeping mission, every 3 months, regardless of the state of their tires, the tires were changed. They gave them allowances. They were satisfied. And he now asked a question. He said, tell me why I would go to the road and ask for money. Money for what?
Have you seen the police barracks? I mean, I drove through that way. I was shocked that people live there.
It is worse than a pigsty. If you put pigs in those places, they will run away.
I mean, people shouldn't be living there.
It is that bad. So when you create this kind of environment, that is part of the dysfunctionality. It's not just, this is just an aspect. Once you give them, you put this kind of things under them. And then again, now what makes it worse is that with even the salaries you are paying them, almost insignificant in terms of the economic realities in this country. Right. And then you put them on an armored personnel career of about maybe 100 million, and you give him a gun of how much, and you are asking him, somebody maybe 50,000 or 40,000 to look after that kind of structured property.
Down for one pass.
Yeah.
Down for one pass, and the conductor does not drop the 200 naira. The guy decides that it's a lie.
So the police authorities are overwhelmed. Believe me, in fairness, when I had an issue with the police some time ago, I was robbed, by the hierarchy of the police in Okitipupa many years back. When the matter was taken, it was even a policeman. That's why you see sometimes you cannot do this blanket stigmatization of every single person.
No, absolutely.
It was a policeman that walked up to me and asked me what happened.
Not every policeman is a criminal.
He asked me what happened, and I told him, I explained. He felt bad. He said, look, you know what to do. Whatever these people tell you, do it.
Now
Don't
there
argue
is
with them. When you get to
you complain.
You complain, and once I did that, they sprang into action.
Right. There is a what I would term as a proactive complaint feedback that they have both in Lagos State and at the federal level. I've called both lines anonymously, and they were ready to take complaints from people. The only thing is you needed to know the name of the policeman, tell them where it happened, and they would follow up. But most Nigerians have not been.
And overwhelmed. But also don't forget, from even the call you make reference to, sometimes you call a police station. There's a robbery going on there. They will tell you to go, how many people. They will first of all ask you how many robbers.
Yes, because they are ill-equipped.
I spoke and then
with,
you should go and find out how many they are.
Yeah, because they are ill-equipped.
You should go and find out.
It has happened, really. So
I can't tell you exactly who in the police, because he told me this in confidence. And I mean, he mentioned that they actually need to collect money from people. When they ask you to bring money to buy exercise book, to buy fuel, he said many times he's used his own personal vehicle to go attend to robbery incidences. So they're ill-equipped. But let's move on to some other things that happened this year.
Yes, absolutely. This year as well, it shook the entire country, in fact, the world, because it caught the attention of the global space as regards...
And that's why we're on that list right now, one of the reasons.
As a matter of fact, yes. And we're talking about the arrest and detention of Ezekzaki. It came into focus big time in July this year because it's you can't say exactly the real story, because this side will give you one story, the other side will give you one story. But what is clear is a court judgment as regards this particular case. Have a listen to this.
Well, there could be, but so far as this man is concerned, government has not really come clean on it. Government is bigger than you, and court gives an order. I believe ordinarily, if you have not appealed that order and get a stay order from either the court that gave the order or an appellate court, there's no justification for keeping that man. On the other hand, two wrongs cannot make a right. For the man to now, for the man supporters to storm the Federal Capital Territory and start destroying public property, I believe that's a prima facie case that these people are dangerous set of human beings. You have an incompetent police force. Why don't you release this man? Because they can't do that in America. If your police people cannot handle him, why don't you just release him and let him go, but maintain strict surveillance on him? The man has reigned with impunity for years. You have succeeded in bringing him to his senses. Just keep him there and give regulations to guide his daily activities.
That's right. That was the voice of Dave Ajetumobi. He gave the legal perspective. We had him on the show as regards that particular detention. Also, on Tuesday, August, we discussed the prescription of the Islamic movement of Nigeria. And Achike was in the studio then. You were there.
Can you remember?
We also had Barrister Monday Obani in the studio then. Then the DSS said they would comply with a court order and would allow Zaki and his wife to proceed for treatment in India. Now, if you remember very clearly, one of the things you said, Chike, especially on Zaki is traveling to India for best health system, was this. Have a listen to this. We don't have that audio ready with us at this moment. But Achike, talking about Zaki detention and, of course, the leave to travel abroad for medical treatment, it generated a buzz at the time, and it was massive, which is why we are on the list by the U.S. watch list today. How have we fared in this regard?
He did travel, remember? Yes. So, I mean...
Of course, that traveling was birthed in controversy and ended in controversy. All of a sudden, I mean, they went and then the next thing they were back. Disagreements from both sides, and nobody exactly knows the truth because.
Remember, the government said he was asking for luxurious treatment.
Asking for an arm and then the leg.
But he was saying he didn't trust the doctors. He wanted another doctor.
Yeah. So unfortunately, he came back, and I don't think that was the intention, at the end of the day. But I think the ex-Zaki issue, it's one of those, blights on the part of the government whenever you're talking about the respect for the rule of law. Because people are going to remember, even beyond the attempt to take him abroad for treatment, the fact that several times, competent courts of jurisdiction in this country had granted this man bail and the government refused. Same thing, and then they would also remember naturally Sambo Dasuki. The same thing. And so it gives the impression of a government that is absolutely lawless, and that not on the basis of my assertion.
On the issue of the IMN, it's also important to underline that hundreds of IMN members were extrajudicially killed and buried in mass graves. I mean, people should never forget it. Because if people think it is not important to underline because they don't share your religion or you don't just like them, or they don't share your sect or whatever, I mean, the day some soldiers under the command of somebody that does not respect democracy, rule of law, human rights or human life marches into your village or your town because, one car hits a car of some soldiers, and then they came down and there was a fight and some soldiers were beaten up, and then they come down and massacre the entire village. You remember on that day that it happened to other people and you did not speak up, and that is why the impunity continued.
We all remember Odi. And the House of Reps then, I mean, I had thought about impeachment of President Olusegun Obasanjo then. It was one of the reasons. Human right violation. When we lose lives, we take it seriously.
It's critical. What Rotimi is also saying. And you see, the reality, I think somewhere in the good book, it says that when a crime goes unpunished, the heart of the people is filled with rebellious thoughts. They want to do the same thing because they've done it and gotten away with it. And so it is a template of acceptance. It is the fact that any government, this thing can happen under any government. Over 300 citizens massacred in one day is something that will touch raw nerves in this country, and we must never forget. Because the tendency again, this thing beyond this, it started. Look, when the action against the judges took place in the night, people were hailing it. The judges are corrupt and so on. And then you tell me what arm of government is not corrupt? And for people like us, it was a very dangerous tendency. That once you allow this thing to happen,
eventually, many of the judges were found not to be corrupt, and it was seen clearly as an act of intimidation. Or just lastly on the IMN matter, for those who keep saying things like they blocked the road, that's why hundreds of them were killed. I just ask, just imagine that any of those religious camps on that Lagos-Ibadan Express Road on the last weekend of the month or any other day, blocks the road. The chief of army staff wants to pass. Clearly, there is no way for the cars to go. Then the soldiers come down and start beating people. It leads to a fight back. What are they going to do? They will come down and shoot all the people that go to that church and say they regularly block the road and they don't allow people to pass.
That can be a reason to kill
How?
people.
Because
there are rules of engagement.
Right. On the 10th of December also, after the 14-day ultimatum was given by CSOs, Shehu Sani, the lawmaker representing Kaduna Central Senatorial District, said Nigeria shouldn't be celebrating Human Rights Day. That was Human Rights Day. Said in 2019 we had nothing to celebrate. According to him, I quote, Nigeria, the country should rather be in mourning, or at least we should be commiserating with ourselves. It says there is prevalence of human rights abuses here, disobedience of court orders, spate of arrests of government critics, use of hate speech to trifle hate speech on social media, brutalization of protesters, violation of rights to life, misuse of armed personnel during elections, and terrorism. Now, on September 24th, we had a conversation on democracy and dissenting voices. We looked at issues of freedom of expression and rights of the media Nigerians to speak across the country. And we had a reaction from one of our guests who was here on the show as to where we can draw the line. This is Dave. Where can we draw the line on freedom of speech and democracy?
Well, there could be, but so far as this man is concerned, government has not really come clean on it. Government is bigger than you, and court gives an order. I believe ordinarily if you have not appealed that order and get a stay order from either the court that gave the order or an appellate court, there's no justification for keeping that man. On the other hand, two wrongs cannot make a right. For the man for the man supporters to storm the Federal Capital Territory and start destroying public property, I believe that's the prima facie case that these people are dangerous.
That was conversation on the IMN that we had, Dave Adetomobi. But we also had Alesta on the show, Alesta Wilcox, when we talked about dissenting voices. And you know, Alesta also always brings the fireworks. And here's what he had to say.
Total, absolute, and total uninhibited freedom of expression.
He was calling for total freedom of expression. He says we must have absolute freedom of expression. I'm talking about freedom of expression. The Punch newspaper just days ago, and some other papers have made decisions to start calling the president Major General. And one of the reactions from the spokesperson of the president is the fact that you can do this means there is freedom of expression.
Well, if you assert your human rights, there is a reason why those rights are called inalienable. I'm sure no one can take it away from you. As Fela said, you can't dash us human rights. Human right is our property.
It's not for you to give to me.
So if somebody say the fact that you can criticize means that there is human right, there are other people that criticized and they are being tried for treason. So what was that fellow talking about?
Well, let's take some comments from those listening to us. Human Rights Violation 2019. Rate Nigeria. What did we do this year? What could we have done better? Here are the phone numbers to call us now.
Call us on 01-277-0993, 01-277-1993, 01-277-2993, and 01-277-3993. This is Nigeria Info. We are listening.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, Sherry. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sakori, and everybody in the house.
Morning.
Good morning. Okay, Austin for Surrey.
Welcome, Austin.
Yeah, my question is simple. What is Showore being held for? It's a simple thing. Just we have to know. So we need to know what is Showore being held for. It doesn't mean that somebody can just be picked up, heard, nothing will be heard of him, and government can just do anything. So the question remains, what is Showore being held for? I think we have to know. Thank you.
Thank you, too, for calling. Hello, good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, good morning. I'm calling from Ido right now.
From Ido, welcome. What's your name?
Wake
Hello?
up.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah,
Okay.
please go ahead now.
Okay. My question is to confirm exactly where Ezra Zaki is right now.
It's still in
And
detention.
whether he's being held by a valid court order in Kaduna. I want that clarification. I don't know whether any of the guests can help us on that.
Rotimi.
Look, if you ask the
Because there have been multiple court orders.
Yes, but
so
look, all this thing is gamesmanship. If you hold somebody and court says release the person on bail, not once, not twice, multiple times, and then you go and get one corner court order.
But it wasn't corner court order.
No,
it was
excuse
done
me.
in a proper court.
Excuse me, corner is ex parte where no evidence
According
is properly
to
presented.
the law, it's not corner as at now. I mean, the law allows for the ex parte order. Unless we change that law, they can still do it.
But it is abusable now, and we all know
We
that
can
it
say
has
that
been
it's
regularly
abusable.
abused.
Yeah.
But it's still the law.
And that it is modus operandi of the states.
Right.
If the state charges you for something which they don't have evidence,
Right.
and a judge says, "Is this all the evidence you have? I'm sorry, release the person on bail." And then the state goes and gets another. It's abuse of court process.
All right, Rotimi. Oh, we lost that call. Hello, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Yeah, see, I think that this human rights issue, it's not just the president that we should be calling out. You see, those that are around him, they're giving him confidence that, see, you can do this thing and get away with it. Because we have to realize the fact that this guy has senior advocates of Nigeria around
The
him.
cabal somebody was trying to
Yes,
rationalize
because,
yesterday.
see, there was a tweet yesterday from someone that there's a bus traveling somewhere and that Fulani men have taken over the bus. And then I saw Kehamo's tweet, response to that tweet that said, and you say there should be no restriction on social media. That are you saying this person should go scot-free with this kind of information that is not true? Even though a boy now put no death penalty. Okay, he specifically said that the libel law is not enough to treat that. Okay, what do you want to do to that person that said that, okay, there is this thing? You, because of that, you want them to arrest him and send him to jail for how many years? This is the same people that will come and be defending. They will lie that they've done a road. They've not done it.
Thank you so much for that thought. We appreciate that. Let's see if we have a correspondent. Tunde Pratt on the line. Tunde, good morning to you. Hello, Tunde. Can you hear us?
No, he can't.
Let's
But
get on with other calls.
Yeah.
Right?
We'll get back to Tunde. He's standing by at the venue of the planned protest by CSOs this morning. Good morning.
Hello, good morning. We can hear you. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello?
Yes, go on, please. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Okay, good morning. My name is Tyson. I'm calling from here.
Okay.
Concerning all this human rights violation in this country, the fact that a competent court of law and the government says no, based on what they believe that they are right. I believe the problem of this country is our constitution. That those documents they have, they call constitution. If you look at our constitution very carefully.
Sorry about that. We lost it. Hello, good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Calling from Aja.
What's your name again?
Chooks calling from Aja.
Chooks, welcome. Go ahead.
Yeah. My contribution is that we citizens, we supposed to really take our action and position in this matter. Because I have an issue somewhere in one of the banks, and the security man threatened
said he will call a mobile police for me. I said, let him call him. I did not steal. I did not have any issue. And by the grace of God, I stood my ground. Though it took me time, about 3 days before I resolved that, because the man came ravaging. He said he will shoot, he will kill, he will do this. I demand judgment from the authority of the bank.
And you got what you wanted, right?
Yes. So we citizens, we must try and maintain our stand.
All right, and thank you so much.
Very much. Let's take a comment from Twitter on our AL Job Forever says human right violation is still very high in Nigeria. Police detains, your phone is seized. Only here will you find policemen carrying AK-47 all about, and that's true. So scary stuff. People that will arrest, no. It said barracks are an ISO. I don't understand that other sentence. We also have comments in here on Facebook. Amadi Anthony says, no. Instant Prince Brain says, good morning, Nigeria Info. Human rights in Nigeria doesn't work. You can imagine if you said that what is going on, that if you say what is going on, the DSS would arrest you, not if you say the right thing at the right time.
They arrest people for saying the right thing, actually. Yes, look.
Rotimi, we are totally out of time now.
The structural violation of rights, lack of
education,
healthcare, is what leads to the protests.
Right, we need to go now. And that protest is meant to start at 9. We're out of time. We need to play some ads. Achike is going straight to the protest. Wetunde Pratt is also standing by, and we'll be bringing you feed from that live protest. So you can watch out for our feeds on social media, Twitter, Facebook, where you'll be seeing the video as a protest. I hope they start at time, and we'll see where this takes us. Achike Chude, Rotimi Sankore,
been a
thank
pleasure,
you.
always.
Tomorrow, we're taking a review of elections in Nigeria. We've had, how many elections this year? About 3? Let's talk about that tomorrow morning and how we've done. We'll see you tomorrow morning again. I'm Wemimo Adewuni.
I'm Sheriff Quadry.
Have a good day.